In the land where I was born, there are now women seeking justice. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
Thank you for tuning into Justice for Birth Mothers. My name is Anna Kavanagh, co-founder and convener to the Alliance of Birth Mothers Campaigning for Justice, Ireland's largest non-Tusla funded group advocating on behalf of birth mothers in difficulty with Tusla, the Gardai and the family court. The mothers that we support are bound by the in-camera rule, which means they could be jailed for speaking outside the family court about what's happening to them. To overcome the silencing of these birth mothers and give them a voice, I interviewed 20 of them that I've personally come to know since our group was formed in 2019. They volunteered to describe their experiences in great detail to let the world know about the ongoing state abuse of mothers and children in Ireland. The voices you're about to hear are the voices of the women who offered to read the transcripts of what was said to me. I want to warn you in advance that you will probably be disturbed by what you're about to hear. This podcast examines kinship care. There's two types of kinship care. Informal kinship care, where Tusla hand the child or children over to family members and close the case and apparently forget about the child. Or formal kinship care, where the family member is paid to mind the children. Sylvia Rouget, researcher with the Alliance of Birth Mothers Campaigning for Justice, explains in more detail.
The issues regarding the precarity of what Tusla refers to as private family arrangements and others as informal kinship care came to light in May 2014 as a result of an Ombudsman for Children's investigation into the HSE seizing a Section 10 payment. The investigation by the Ombudsman made the following findings. This investigation has raised serious concern more generally in relation to the use of informal private care arrangements by Tusla in the context of child protection concerns. This office is of the view that Tusla need to address the broader question of the use of such approach in these circumstances. Moreover, when they are concerned about a risk to a child and a family is not agreeable to voluntary care and enters a private arrangement, this does not displace Tusla's obligations to the child. In its response in 2014, Tusla accepted all findings and recommendations and committed to implementing these as a matter of priority. It also committed to reviewing the use of private family arrangements and indicated that this work had commenced in the Midlands. Tusla gave further updates in 2014 to the Ombudsman and stated in writing that the designated staff member, namely the Information Services and Data Control Manager, was reviewing private family arrangements throughout the country. It also stated that every area would have a designated manager who would receive notification of such private arrangements and would be responsible for the monitoring of such placements. This was 2014, and it would be reasonable to assume the issue was resolved.
We'll hear more from Sylvia in a moment or two, but first, Emma. Emma was a single mum parenting two children on her own. Her son was on the autism spectrum and she was really struggling. She went to Tusla seeking help, and their response was to remove her son from her care and place him in an informal kinship care setting and close the file. Emma lost all contact with her son.
In my case, they put my child with family, left them there and then closed the case. They didn't check if the family was suitable or not, check if the home was suitable, and never checked for the 18 months he was there, see if he was okay. They didn't put supports in place for a child who is 3 hours away from home in a place they've never been to before and a child with autism. This is unbelievable. I didn't know that this was possible. This is no man's land. So basically, they do not have enough foster carers. The state is saving €350 a week of foster allowances and the supports that go with it, and just ship a kid to whoever will have them and say good luck. Nothing is there to ensure that that child is okay. When I looked into it further, I was horrified to see that the Children's Ombudsman did a report on the dangers of kinship care back in 2014 and the need for the state to at least oversee kinship care, support the carers and support the children. Tusla committed in writing to implementing the recommendations of this report with timelines and everything, but Tusla never adhered to its written commitments to the Ombudsman. In 2018, a High Court judge again said that Tusla was in breach of the Child Care Act, the European law, all these things, and found against Tusla. Again, nothing happened. But in 2021, Conor O'Mahony, the Special Rapporteur for Children, published a very good report and investigation showing all the dangers of kinship care and the illegality of Tusla's informal private arrangements or kinship care, whatever name you want to give it. And again, nothing was done. I brought it to the attention of the Dáil's Children's Committee. I brought it to the attention of the Minister for Children. And then I wrote to Tusla. Nobody wants to deal with the issue, really. And now finally, they're half dealing with it and putting it on the wrong finger again. We're looking into this. We're looking into that. We're doing an investigation. We're doing this. We're doing that. The reality is, in 2014, the state had committed to ensuring children in informal kinship care or private family arrangement would be at the very least monitored and offered support. It's now 9 years later. Those are illegal placements. They have to be immediately suspended. But the state is not doing it because it saves a fortune for them. There isn't even a record of how many children are placed in kinship care. Nobody knows. It's just shocking. In the case of my son, nobody cared. Tusla had no idea where he was. They didn't care. That is shocking. That is absolutely shocking to think that Tusla did not know where my son was when they closed his file.
Motherhood is hard, support the mother and the child together. Do not tear this love asunder. Support, respect the mother. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
In 2021, the Special Rapporteur for Children's research raised serious concerns regarding the use of private family arrangements by Tusla. His study found that the agency, despite that 2014 commitment to the Ombudsman for Children, did not hold any relevant information regarding children placed under PFAs. He stated that PFAs, private family arrangements, have a questionable legal foundation, place the child in a legal twilight zone, abdicates the state's responsibility under Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights and related case law to put in place measures that will support the possibility of reunification of the child and the natural parents. In 2022, the Minister for Children was asked on several occasions in the Dáil about the use of private family arrangements by Tusla by several TDs, including Peadar Tóibín, Brian Stanley, Thomas Gold, Patrick Costello and Kathleen Funchion. His responses were alarming and identical to all TDs. He stated that there was no formal definition of the term private family arrangements and that no review of their use had happened. It brings up a huge issue in terms of consent. Indeed, how can parents or indeed children and young people give consent to a form of care arrangements for which there are no definitions? For consent to be obtained, one must at the very least know and understand what they are consenting to. The Minister also confirmed that Tusla did not collate any data regarding these arrangements, as had been outlined by the Special Rapporteur in 2021, and in total contradiction to the commitments made by Tusla in 2014. In September 2022, The Ombudsman for Children's report to the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child raised again the issue of private family arrangements and stated that there is a lack of data on the number of children being cared for in informal kinship care arrangements and inadequate state supports and appropriate oversight of these arrangements. We were by then over 8 years since the Ombudsman for Children's first recommendations, 8 years during which nothing happened and nothing changed, making a farce of the words of Tusla to the Ombudsman in 2014.
Tammy's partner was jailed for a very serious domestic violence incident, and Tusla used this incident as the excuse to remove Tammy's children from her care. 2 of the children were placed in a formal kinship care arrangement with her sister.
My sister has 2 of my children. They are worth so much money to her. She does not want to give them back, and she has made false allegations about me to Tusla. She gave up work when she got my 2 children, and she's 2 of her own. My children are worth €700 a week tax-free to her, and she gets lots of allowances and money to go on holidays. My sister has cut herself off from the rest of the family. She just keeps to herself. If there's a family gathering, I'm not allowed to go because I'm not allowed to have access to my children because of her. One time I told her that I was going to fight Tusla to get my children back, and she said I was to let her know because she'd have to go back to work to pay her mortgage. As well as the €700 from Tusla every week, she also gets domiciliary allowance of €330 per month because one of my children has special needs, and she gets €280 a month children's allowance. My children are worth $850 a week to her, and she's not going to give them up without a fight. On top of all that, she's getting a lone parent allowance of over €300 a week. There's a whole load of other benefits as well. In my case, giving children to family members did not work out at all. My sister will fight tooth and nail to hold on to my children because they're worth so much money to her.
Give the mothers back their children. Give the children back to the mother. Justice for birth mothers. Oh Lord, hear my prayer.
On the 28th of March 2023, the Minister for Children, who in 2022 found nothing wrong with the use of private family arrangements, stated the following to the Dáil Committee on Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth. In respect of private family arrangements, I would like to acknowledge the letter I received from the committee in September. My department is currently undertaking a scoping exercise to identify the key issues and information required to inform a policy specifically to address the needs of children and families in private family arrangements in Ireland. This policy will seek to ensure that the rights of children in private care arrangements are upheld and appropriate supports provided. Yet, action could have been taken since 2014, and any Minister for Children could have taken this action to ensure the rights of children under private family arrangements were upheld and appropriate supports were provided. Conor O'Mahony informed me in March 2022 that the Minister had the right to simply issue a direction to Tusla under Section 47 of the Child and Family Agency Act 2013, as did previous ministers, as private family arrangements exist solely at a practice level within Tusla and have no legal framework, nor even a formal agency governing them. As such, direction given by the Minister under Section 47 would have addressed the issue without the need for formal law reform. The sad reality is that not one minister cared to issue this direction, and nothing has changed, nearly 10 years after Tusla committing to addressing this. For 10 years, the state continued to facilitate the placement of children in arrangements which are not defined, not monitored, and not supported, with everyone agreeing that they do not hold up children's rights.
One song you don't want to hear, is the cry of the mother and her child taken from her. Justice for birth mothers, oh Lord, hear my prayer.
I don't even know how long I was in a mother and baby home. I don't know. And it's irrelevant whether you were 1 week, 1 day, 6 months, or 2 years, because the central crime that church and state committed was the primal wound of separating a mother from their child, which has, from the minute that it happens, a lifelong effect on mother and child. A lifelong effect. It is the primal wound that begins on day one. And in some cases, and I have to say, I always say it, my story turned out to be lucky. I eventually was reunited with my mother and I was adopted by a wonderful family. But the truth is, whether your story and what happened was terrible, and for some it was terrible, absolutely terrible, all of their lives, they suffered all of their lives because of that primal wound inflicted by church and state. But every one of them, whether they were boarded out, suffered abuse, mothers forced to work essentially as slaves, shamed all their life, the stigma of illegitimacy, whatever it was to a greater or lesser extent, everybody had a crime committed against them from day one when they were torn out of the arms of their mother, or the mother had their child torn out of their arms.
Deputy Richard Boyd Barrett speaking from personal experience about the primal wound caused by separating a mother from her baby. We speak about the terrible atrocities that occurred in the past, but the truth is that the ongoing state abuse of mothers and children continues to the present day. And it's no longer the churches involved, it's Tusla. Justice for Birth Mothers is a co-production between the Alliance of Birth Mothers Campaigning for Justice and Compass Media. The podcast series received no funding and is made possible by a team of volunteers. Pseudonames have been used to protect the identities of the birth mothers. We're grateful to these mothers who shared their stories to highlight the ongoing state abuse of mothers by Tusla, some Gardai and the family court system. Thanks also to the ladies who read the transcripts, which were very difficult for them given the harrowing stories. Thank you for listening. And please share this podcast with your family, friends and contacts. In the next podcast, I'll be chatting to retired social worker Maura Butterley. Until next time, Bannocht de Arif Galair.
In the land where I was born, there are now women seeking justice. Justice for birth mothers, oh Lord, hear